Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video we will be talking about a growing potential for a large fall storm to be brewing across the northwestern third of the country. This will also be affecting southwestern Canada and southern Canada. Now the models have been really back and forth with this system. So a few days ago I made a video, the first video about it. It appeared to be more of a northwestern intermountain system. Now it appears the models, after a few days of almost completely disappearing from the forecast graphics, the models are back to showing it, at least the GFS is, and it's showing it more of a intermountain system at first that then strengthens into a plains system, which delivers potentially a decent bit of snow into the far northern Canadian prairies. So this is definitely a system that is not what you would typically see during summer and fall, or even early fall. It's more something you'd see in September, but with the current weather pattern we have going on, it is a little bit unseasonably cold, so it's giving the rise to a possible early snowstorm across the extreme northern Canadian areas of the viewing area I have pulled up here, and into portions of the mountainous northwest. I won't call it a snowstorm, but early snow is definitely a possibility with this system. So I want to start off by looking at the GFS model, the American model in other terms. It has been the better model as of really honestly the last year, but especially within the last few months, it has outperformed the European model by a great extent, so I will continue using it. And what we have currently, I mean, you probably are feeling it. I've been talking about a potential cool-off across a good portion of the United States for a decent bit now, right? And it has finally come, right? It is finally here. At least in my area, it is downright cold. In some parts of the house, we had to close the windows because it was just getting too cold. And what we have essentially driving this cool down is a strong high pressure that has moved in behind this powerful autumn storm that we first saw across southeastern Canada and southern Canada that brought a pretty measly cold front for honestly how strong this system and how wide it was. But it allowed this high pressure to come in and infiltrate with its cold air sweeping from the north. And the important thing here is that what this leads up to our potential storm that I'm talking about in the title, because it has allowed the pattern to shift from a more zonal flow, which we were pretty much seeing all summer, just zonal bouts of precipitation coming from west to east, from west to east. And also that is why some pockets of areas across the Midwest that were caught in these flows had such heavy precipitation through the summer. It was also accompanied with very warm conditions as the zonal flow. It was not hard for it to suddenly shift more to the from a zonal west to east to a south to north, bringing in a lot of warm air. And now it seems as if the pattern has finally flipped with this cool down, and we are seeing a pattern that is veering winds and storms from the northwest to the southeast of the United States. And do figure that this will continue. So note, we have this high pressure, right, the cool down that came from the northwest, but look, even by this upcoming Thursday, we already have another little small storm right there, upper level disturbance, you can honestly call it more than a storm, across Canada, and that brings a cold front, showers and storms, and it's not really important in the fact that it is big or impactful, but it is more important in the fact that it brings down a cold front that continues to flow from the northwest to the southeast. And notice that the monsoons as well, kind of flowing a little initially, taking from the ocean going north, and then kind of sliding towards the southeast. So everything you could see generally has a from northwest to southeast flow. Now there are going to be a few storms that defy that, right? But generally speaking, it's kind of set up this pattern, and this is important because as you take this look into the further time frame, so by next Monday, September 1st already, yeah, time flies really. I mean, I just remember it being the first days of August, and now it's the first days of September. And what we have is a system disturbance that comes in from the northwest and tries setting something up here that is more characteristic of, again, a larger fall storm. You could see that trough digging in from the northwest, right? I guess southwestern Canada into the northwestern United States, potentially dropping some snow across the mountains of Alberta, Canada. And with this high pressure that we still have stubbornly set up across the east, you can see it's not necessarily even that strong. It is pretty strong, but what's more important about it is that it's really big. I mean, look at that wind field associated with it, and all high pressures spin clockwise, so the winds around it are flowing like this, right? You have a that was a crazy arrow. You have the low pressure sitting here, or any low pressure that sits here is pretty much forced to kind of just sit and strengthen over time, and that allows these winds to really turn from the south southwest and this is the convergence of winds that you often see with large winter storms or fall storms or even spring storms. And take a look at this. While this storm is pretty much forced to sit here because of this big, fat, stubborn high pressure, it allows a lot of moisture to get tossed very, very far north, which would normally struggle this time of the year. And we potentially see, with these really strong winds here, a large system setting up. Very classic. I mean, this is like your perfect classic storm. Fall storm, winter storm, whatever you want to call it. And here's that backside of that low pressure again, pretty strong, 990 for a inland low pressure. That is definitely a decent size. Nothing record breaking by any means. We have that warm front outstretched over here. We have the cold front down here, and we have the backside, which with this time of the year already, we could potentially be seeing some snow across some of these areas. At this point, it shows Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Again, not crazy far out. It's not La La Land for the models. It's around 228 hours out, which is close enough where we could start taking these things seriously. What is also an interesting feature that the models have been showing for a few days now is potentially some sort of a coastal system, some sort of a coastal low pressure developing across the northeast there into the mid-Atlantic. Definitely tropical influenced, if not induced completely. And this has been showing up for quite a few model runs. I wouldn't call it a hurricane or a tropical storm, but definitely some sort of rain threat that could be developing into that first midweek of next week, which again is far away, but not far away for some of these weather models to start picking up on. And notice that this system going back to the northwest here really develops into a powerful storm. We have 985 millibars at this point. By next Thursday, we have snow developing on the backside across Manitoba. Saskatchewan really getting, across Saskatchewan, Manitoba really getting in on the center of that low pressure according to this weather model run, and you can see that this kind of spins away. But it is nonetheless an impressive storm with potentially we will have to watch a lot of explosive severe weather across the northern plains with this system. There are still a lot of dynamics that are supportive of severe weather this time of the year, so if that were to occur, that is definitely a concern. And then notice that the pattern kind of continues that flow with where we have a high pressure situated across the southeast, these strong bands driving moisture. Any air that is containing any type of moisture gets tossed towards the north and allows to form into potentially yet another system here in the longer range. So we are looking at a very active pattern, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, and the GFS is a absolute fan of this system. And I say that because the European model is not really supportive of this system, and it doesn't really show it in any major way, but that is expected. It is far out. But the European has not been consistent at all with really any metric, and it hasn't shown this system. The GFS picked up on this system already earlier on, and it has been showing more or less variations of this system throughout its most recent model runs to some extent, right? The European, for example, look at it. It's completely showing almost a different pattern with these random high pressures strung across the United States. It does show still a northwest to southeast oriented pattern, especially across the northern United States, so a marked difference with what we have been seeing. But overall, just strange. And look at these anomalies that it was showing earlier at the midnight model run. It showed a very large system potentially developing, again, very far out, so not the same system the GFS was showing. This potentially right here is potentially what the European viewed as the storm that the GFS is showing. But again, this is, I think, the only model run from the European model that has shown that system. And I think, to be honest, it's more of an accident, because in the more recent model run, it has completely stopped showing it again. And look what it showed in the temperature anomalies in the long range. It just showed this extremely expansive cold air mass across the western and central United States, which doesn't really have any support from the GFS or the ensembles. It's kind of getting to the point where I almost probably come off as a European model hater on this weather channel. I'm not. It's just that it has really, really not handled anything correctly ever since I've been noticing its failures in the last year. I really hope that is not the case with the European model being so inaccurate, because if it comes to winter storms, in the winter time, it is fabulous to have two models to look and back and forth, kind of see, cross-check them. If you have just one, really, the GFS and the European being out there in crazy land, it's not going to be good. What I want to now do is show you this system, right? The one that we've been talking about, but in the GFS again, but through its different various model runs. So the GFS comes out 4 times per day, so obviously it changes. once per day, to whatever extent, depending on the accuracy and confidence. So notice this is what it showed with that system again the first few days of September, with its morning model run. You can see it showed some sort of precipitation trying to take off here, some sort of a front, but it is markedly different from what we're seeing now. If you take a look at the noon model run, it definitely showed a system, but it developed it further east. But notice that it has been somewhat consistent with its showing, unlike the European, which shows a system, then it doesn't, then it shows a massive cold air mass, and then it shows a heat wave, so it's all over the place. And then you can see with the most recent one, which I just showed you, it shows the system in its current stage. So yes, this will definitely change. I'm not saying that the system is going to set up across the areas that it's setting up. To be honest, I'm not even sure if this thing will even develop in the first place, but it's a long-range outlook kind of video, and I wanted to introduce you to that. And again, I do believe the GFS has a better handle on these systems, so I wanted to show you that. In terms of, for those that are curious, in terms of the total snowfall that may fall from the system across Canada, you could see that it's going to be pretty far north with this model run, but it could get, potentially even within 50 to 100 miles of the U.S. border there with some snow, and across the U.S. mountainous and Canadian areas, a decent bit of snow as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on for. One more model I'd like to show you guys is the Canadian. This one usually is quite a bit worse than a GFS and a European, and even with the European's recent decline in accuracy, I believe the Canadian is still worse. But I want to show you it because even this model shows some sort of activity brewing potentially around that. Again, that 1st to 2nd to 3rd of September timeframe across the northern United States. It is a little different in characteristic. It's more of a frontal system, but it's definitely nonetheless there. And sometimes, compared to what the Canadian sometimes can show, with regards to comparison with the GFS and European, this is not bad of a showing, and it also seems to be more aligned with the European model, with showing more of these cold blasts coming in, while the GFS is either showing activity in terms of systems, or again, more of a cold period brought on by a larger system, which I just showed you. And again, with some of that activity that we could be seeing from the GFS, there could be some severe storms on the southern side of this, but early snow and cold as well possible from the GFS scenario there. So we will have to keep an eye on that time frame at this point. That is all I have for you today. I just wanted to give you a brief rundown. Tomorrow I will be making more another video, and I'll be going more in depth potentially on the temperature outlook, as today I didn't really touch on that. I just kind of focused on that system. That is basically it for today though. Hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you learned something new, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.